Okay, I'd like to defer for the first couple minutes of this live stream to a certain person who I found online. And I have his name covered up so you can't see who he is, but he says some very insightful words about the latest refugee crisis.
Oh, say, can you see Donald Trump, señores? Déjenme decirles algo, aquí veo a la raza que lo está reventando Donald Trump, que porque tiene, ay, los migrantes los tienen enjaulados. A ver, señores, déjenme decirles algo, si tú rompes
He's saying, look everybody, I want to tell you something.
La ley migratoria de un país, entras de manera ilegal, entonces estás cometiendo un crimen. Se te debe de...
If you break the immigration law of a country, you're committing a crime, he says.
Remitir en una celda y luego te deportan. ¿Dónde querían que lo estuvieran?
They'll put you in a cell and they'll deport you.
En un hotel de 5 estrellas, con unas viejas como la selección mexicana, con un churrón de mota. ¿Qué querían que estuvieran haciendo? Sí,
he says, what do you want him to do? Put you in a 5-star hotel with the Mexican national soccer team?
Pues van a decir, oh, es que es inhumano. A ver, ¿han visto cómo tratan los mexicanos a los hondureños, a los centroamericanos, a gente de otro lado? En Estados Unidos los meten tras una región.
He says, how do you think they treat the Hondurans and the Guatemalans in Mexico?
Pobrecitos, aquí los matan, señores, a los migrantes en todos lados, la gente los discrimina y todo, ¿sí? Así que no hay que ser hipócritas. Ay, cómo los tienen enrejados. Y ustedes, los que viven en fraccionamientos, enrejados para que no se metan a robar, porque también he visto que andan aplaudiendo que sí, no, si se mete un ladrón en mi casa, no, le cortamos las manos, yo lo mato y no sé.
He says, you know, the same thing you pose to people, would you... So if you want these people to come in because you're so furious about it, would you take them into your house? And they say, no, of course I wouldn't let these people into my house.
¿Qué? Pero están lloriqueando porque los migrantes los tienen en una jaulita. Donald Trump.
And he says, but these same people, they whine about these people being in a detention center.
Es el mejor presidente que ha tenido Estados Unidos en mucho tiempo.
He says Donald Trump is the greatest president that the U.S. has had in many years, in a long time.
Porque no le importa lo que diga la gente, solamente hace lo que beneficia a su país. Si aprendiéramos un poquito.
He says, because he doesn't give a shit what everybody else says, he does what's best for his own country.
O nuestros gobernantes aprendieran un poquito de Donald Trump y no andar con apariencias de, ay, es que es muy grosero y todo.
He says it would be better if some of these leaders would understand a little bit of the mentality that Donald Trump is doing, instead of crying like a bunch of bitches about, oh, it's really rude and not very nice.
Entonces, señores, tendríamos un país diferente cuando empezáramos a pensar por los mexicanos. Yo celebro la actitud de Trump, yo celebro la política.
He says, I hope that this will lead to a different idea for the Mexican policy. I actually very much celebrate Donald Trump.
Migratoria, y les voy a decir por qué. Porque, ¿qué esperaban? ¿Que Estados Unidos dejara entrar a todos los migrantes de todos los países?
He says, because what did you expect? You know, he says, I'm going to tell you something. What did you expect? For the USA to take in all of the immigrants from all the other countries?
La gente piensa que los migrantes que se van de aquí de México y de otros lugares son pura gente con afán de trabajar. No, hay un montón de criminales también que están robando.
He says people think that these people who are coming from Mexico are all, you know, they're people who want to work. He says, no, there's plenty of criminals coming in.
Ando asesinando y todo. A ver, quiero que dejen entrar un malandrín que le robó su casa, que los asaltó, y lo apapachen bien, denle una cervecita, tráiganle una vieja, un clamatito, por favor. No anden payaseando, señores. ¡Viva Donald Trump!
So he says, yeah, the rest of it was a bit incoherent for me. Sorry, I'm not exactly Miguel Cervantes. So, essentially, we're still talking about today. We're still talking about, oh shit, I think, did I make this private? Fuck. Yeah, I'm going to have to restart this. Alright, I'm sorry, but I have to restart my stream. I realized after about a few minutes that it was private, but I'm going to lead in. This is going to be very tiring because I just did this and now I have to do it again. But I want you to hear what this gentleman has to say about certain immigration policies.
Oh, say, can you see? Donald Trump, señores. Déjenme decirles algo. Aquí veo la raza que lo está reventando. Donald
He says, Donald Trump, everybody, he makes me want to say something.
Trump, que porque tiene...
Or let me say something.
Ay, los migrantes los tienen enjaulados. A ver, señores, déjenme decirles algo. Si tú rompes
Says, look, everybody, let me tell you something.
la ley migratoria de un país, entras de manera ilegal, entonces estás cometiendo un crimen.
He says, if you enter a country against its immigration policy, you're committing a crime.
Te debe de remitir en una celda y luego te deportan. ¿Dónde querían que los
He says they're going to put you in a cell and they're going to deport you.
estuvieran? En un hotel de 5 estrellas, con unas viejas como la selección mexicana, con un churrón de moda.
He said they're not going to put you in a 5-star hotel with one of the, I think he said one of the women from the Mexican national team.
¿Qué querían que estuvieran haciendo? Sí, van a decir, oh, es que es inhumano. A ver, ¿han visto cómo tratan los mexicanos a los hondureños, a los centroamericanos, a gente de otro lado?
He says, how do you think Mexico treats the migrants that come from Honduras or Guatemala or all these other countries?
En Estados Unidos los meten tras una rejita, pobrecitos. Aquí los matan, señores, a los migrantes en todos lados. La gente los discrimina y todo, ¿sí? Así
He says in Mexico, they discriminate against immigrants from all over the place.
que no hay que ser hipócritas. Ay, cómo los tienen enrejados. Y ustedes, los que viven en fraccionamientos, enrejados para que no se metan a robar, porque también he visto que andan aplaudiendo que sí, no. Si se mete un ladrón en mi casa, no, le cortamos la...
He's talking to all the people that, he'll ask them, what about you people who live in all those fine neighborhoods or whatever? Will you take these people in? They're like, fuck no, we're not going to let them into our house. Of course not.
Mano, yo lo mato y no sé qué, pero están llorando.
He says, they say, oh, I would kill them if they came into my house and try to do this to my family.
Y quedando porque los migrantes los tienen en una jaulita. Donald Trump es el mejor presidente que ha tenido Estados Unidos en mucho tiempo.
Says Donald Trump is the greatest president that America has had in a long time.
Porque no le importa lo que diga la gente, solamente hace lo que beneficia a su país.
He says because he doesn't give a shit what everybody else says. He just does whatever the hell he thinks is best for his country.
Si aprendiéramos un poquito, o nuestros gobernantes aprendieran un poquito de Donald Trump y no andar con apariencias y, ay, es que es muy grosero y todo. Entonces, señores, tendríamos...
He says he wishes other leaders behaved that way instead of, saying, oh, it's really unfair. It's super rude.
Un país diferente cuando empezáramos a pensar por los mexicanos. Yo celebro la actitud de Trump, yo celebro la política.
He said, I rejoice at the election of Trump.
Migratoria, y les voy a decir por qué.
As well as the migration policy, and I'll tell you why.
Les voy a decir por qué. Porque, ¿qué esperaban? ¿Que Estados Unidos dejara entrar a todos los migrantes de todos los países?
Did you really expect all the United States to take in the immigrants from all over the fucking world?
La gente piensa que los migrantes que se van de aquí de México y de otros lugares son pura gente con afán de trabajar. No, hay un montón de criminales también que están robando.
He's like, oh, people think only people who want to work hard want to come to America, that they cross the border illegally. No, a bunch of fucking criminals are coming too.
Robando, asesinando y todo. A ver, quiero que dejen entrar un malandrín que le robó su casa, que los asaltó y lo apapachen bien, dele una cervecita.
He says, what, these people think that people are going to break into their house and they're like, oh, let me bring you a beer.
Tráiganle una vieja, un clamatito, por favor.
Bring me one of your bitches, so, I don't know what that's.
No anden payaseando, señores. Viva Donald Trump a la... Oh.
He says, stop clowning around everybody. Long live Donald Trump, I guess. There are people in those countries who know that this whole thing is nonsense. It doesn't matter. I just had that image up to cover this guy's name because, I figured that would be the best way. So, essentially, we're talking about right now, the biggest crisis in the world is immigration. And I was talking a couple of days ago with somebody who's since blocked me. I'm not going to say who because he's been on the show and he's blocked me now because apparently I'm not, I'm not up to his level in terms of being able to debate the policies of immigration. And this guy basically was trying to say, oh, there must be some sort of way to deal with this crisis without separating children and families. And then I explained to him the whole issue of catch and release, and people weren't appearing for their court dates. And this is a trained lawyer, and he says, he could never come up with a reply or a solution of what to do about that. But then he gets all bent out of shape that I was basically running up points on him and his friends, all of whom were. But let me explain something. I can't get into this too far because, first of all, I don't have the evidence. And second of all, I'm not going to dox this person, even though they blocked me in a very unjustified manner. But this person was basically celebrating this post. I'll pull it up. I don't know why I'm on all caps. So the Methodist Church decided to expel Jeff Sessions. Let me see here. So, and he was basically like making it into some sort of big issue that he violated paragraph 2702.3 of the Book of Discipline. And the Book of Discipline allows for a church trial and even expulsion of a lay member. And I'm not a fan of Jeff Sessions. I think a lot of my people in my audience also don't really like Jeff Sessions especially because of his drug policy. But let me tell you something. I don't see why people should celebrate that the Methodist Church, one of the most liberal mainline Protestant churches in America. So there's a difference between a mainline Protestant church and an evangelical church in the United States. They're basically saying, this is a big victory because the church is turning against Jeff Sessions, right? So they're like, well, this is very important. That's not the case. It just isn't. And hey, Mad Dodge, if you want to hop on, I can send you, I can call you or something, or I guess you can call me on Hangouts. I'm fine with you coming on because I did a live stream earlier today. I'm gonna put on my headphones. So if anybody wants to hop on in the audience and talk about this, I have a number of topics. I think I'm gonna do 35 minutes today. But this person was trying to say basically that there's an issue where the church is turning against Jeff Sessions and turning against the immigration policy, and that the moral compass of America is becoming, is becoming unglued because of this. And it's just not the case because the Methodist Church in Alabama makes up about 5% of the population. They were saying, because can't right now, thanks, I'm making lunch for the kids. Good for you, having kids. I hope your kids can sleep at night knowing that, Dora the Explorer isn't able to, get to Tucson or something. So I'm just saying, I appreciate, all jokes aside, the fact that a lot of these children are incapable of, of having a stable life because they're migrants and everything. But with all due respect, this is there's a country with borders. There's a country where people, people don't have enough often in order to feed their own kids or their parents. People have been born here, lived here for decades, for their entire lives. You have immigrants who immigrated here legally and can't get by, and yet we're supposedly such a moral country that the Methodist Church, the United Methodist Church, which is among the most liberal churches in the United States of America, is supposed to dictate to the Attorney General something about immigration policy. It doesn't work that way. And for all these people suddenly using, let me tell you something. When I grew up in the 1990s, the liberal left hated religion. They believed that religion was basically the superstition of idiots. And now they're trying to use the Methodist Church, which has their departure from actual religious belief systems. The actual the belief in a superior, omniscient, omnipresent being is not really the strongest. They don't go and focus the majority of their time speaking on the actual principles of Methodism. I think Methodism was founded by maybe it was like John Wesley in the 18th century. I don't even remember. And now they've transformed them. This could well have been a podcast that I'm making about society and theology. I have a small. It's not a series. It's just I just do it every once in a while. I talk about religion and the way that it interacts with the public. And if you want to look at the United Methodist Church and this person's use of that, of them as an example of how actual real Christians are rejecting this immigration policy, you have to realize that the United Methodist Church is consistently one of the most liberal churches in America. They don't represent these evangelicals. They don't represent how United Methodists can support. So good for them. You want to support immigrant families, good for you. I'm not gonna say don't do it, because if that's what your religion tells you to do, that's what it tells you to do. If it also says, they have a Korean Methodist church and a Hispanic Methodist church and a French Methodist church, I'll tell you what, they have the right to profess whatever they want. When they start to say, well, we're going to expel one of our church members for executing his mission as not his mission as a churchgoer, but his mission as a person. Hold on. One second. Who we are. What the hell? Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. They're trying to criticize Jeff Sessions on the basis of the fact that he is a member of the church, and as a member of the administration, he is not following their national or international stance on immigrant families and separating them. Well, you can hate these refugees. Let me share this stream again, by the way. I need to, let me see here. Let me open this, cover this window. One second. Share this again. To share with a couple people. So essentially, we're really talking right now about a church that for many years would support separation of church and state, and now that it's not going the way they want it, they want to weigh in and say, look, Jeff Sessions, we never weighed in and forced you to revoke your policies on marijuana. Okay, we've never had an issue of that. And, and we've never had an issue on anything like that. But now, because our administration is out of power, we're going to shame you, Jeff Sessions, because you don't support that. Because if you won't support our position on open borders, it's ridiculous. It's out of whack. No person who gets elected into public office can expect to be able to implement the exact positions of their faith. Okay, if that were the case, obviously, we would have a lot of people saying, well, let's not elect Catholics. By the way, I mean, that's one of the reasons a lot of these people who normally would be tolerant of freedom of religion, they don't want to elect Muslims, because a lot of sects of Islam don't believe in the separation of church and state. In fact, they want Islam to take over as the political philosophy of these countries. They want Sharia law. They do. They want Muslim guided policies to be the law of the land in many of their countries. I'm not making that up. That's just a fact. So I don't understand why people can't accept that. So you see here, the United Methodist Church acknowledges that all persons are all of sacred worth. All persons without regard to race, color, national origin, status, or economic condition shall be eligible to attend its worship services, participate in its programs, receive the sacraments, upon baptism be admitted as baptized members, and take vows relating to the Christian faith, becoming professing members in all church in the connection. Yeah, it's a pretty fucked up article somebody just sent me. All people may attend its worship services, participate in its programs, receive the sacraments, and become members in any local church in the connection. So, inclusiveness in the church. You know, they do everything through the book of discipline. And, you know, it says the General Council on Finance and Administration shall be responsible for ensuring that no board, agency, committee, commission, or council shall give United Methodist funds to any gay caucus or group or otherwise use such funds to promote the acceptance of homosexuality or violate the express commitment of the United Methodist Church not to reject or condemn lesbian and gay members and friends. The council shall have the right to stop such expenditures. It shall not limit the church's ministry in response to the HIV epidemic. Okay, so that here's the thing. So the church is saying, while persons set apart by the church for ordained ministry are subject to all the frailties of the human condition and the pressures of society, they are required to maintain the highest standards of holy living in the world. The practice of homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching. Therefore, self-avowed practicing homosexuals are not to be certified as candidates, ordained as ministers, or appointed to serve in the United Methodist Church. 1. So this is a note. Self-avowed practicing homosexual is understood to mean that a person openly acknowledges to a bishop, district superintendent, district committee of ordained ministry, board of ordained ministry, or clergy session that the person is a practicing homosexual. So they decided, you know, we're going to let you come to the church, but, you know, you can't really run the place. And I accept the United Methodist Church to say whatever it wants about any position, okay? And you know, frankly, if I were them, I would probably have a roughly similar position to them, even though I'm not a Christian. But I mean, the book is the book. So you know, what do you want from them? This is the issue here. They want other people to accept their you know, their holier than thou position on Jeff Sessions. Okay, I'm getting a little incoherent here because this is just driving me insane. But you know, in their own in their own book of discipline, they say, well, we'll let you come to church, but you can't be in charge, buddy. Sorry, Brad. You know, why don't you and Steve go over to, you know, the Pier 1 Imports or whatever place where most people like you congregate, and find your own church over there if you want to run it. But you know, we won't let you do it. What about on gay marriage? Because one of the people arguing with me was really making a big deal out of that. So, let me just UMC stance on gay marriage. This should be fun. So this is still one of the more liberal churches in the United States of America. So conferences reject Church's stance on gays. Rejecting the denomination's stance on gay rights and same-sex marriage were important issues for at least 15 United Methodist annual or regional conferences this summer. United Methodists from Washington and the northern panhandle of Idaho approved legislation supporting the Marriage Equality Act. The law was signed by the... So you have these people that they can't understand. Do they want to be actual practicing Christian people who believe in the teachings of their church? I'm not telling you whether they're right or wrong. I'm telling you, these people are, they can't decide. They can't decide. Pick one. Pick a side. Are you on the side of your religion, or are you on the side of a political campaign? Because you can't be both. During the June 21st through 24th meeting, and we'll get back to immigration soon, meeting, delegates also approved a resolution to address a lack of congruence between the denomination's hardened stance against homosexuality and its historic affirmations of the rights of all people. The Reverend Sandy Brown, pastor at Seattle First Union Methodist Church, said the church's stance is wrong, stupid, and evil. At the Iowa conference on June 2nd through 5th, so this was, I don't even know what the date is on this. Could these people, put a date on here? Jeez Louise. Let's assume it was last year. Yeah, I think this was last year. Here we go. Let's open this link. We're getting deep in the weeds here, baby. We're getting deep in the weeds for Jeff Sessions. Now, I guess they took it down. So, at the Iowa conference from June 2nd through 5th, more than 500 signed a Do No Harm covenant stating the denomination's top lawmaking body made decisions that violated John Wesley's first general rule by failing to acknowledge that members of the United Methodist Church are divided on homosexuality. A second document, Covenant of Conscience, supports same-sex marriage. Members of the Minnesota Annual Regional Conference meeting May 30th through June 1st voted to send a resolution opposing a proposed amendment to the Minnesota State Constitution that only a union of one man and one woman will be recognized as marriage. The proposal will be on the November ballot. That might be. Oh, thank you, Broken Link. Let's see here. Maybe this one works. Oh, you can't go here? What's the point of having these? So this is a church that is basically, divided on its inside over this whole issue. Yeah, this was in 2012, apparently. So it says delegates cannot agree; they disagree on sexuality. So frankly, this is the whole issue, that this is a church that they can't agree on literally anything. It's like a joke. So why should I care what they think? And suddenly they want to propose to Jeff Sessions, oh, you're such a mean person. Jeff Sessions is one of these people who has put drug offenders away for a very long time. And yet the Methodist Church never tried to kick him out because of that. Some of these drug offenders, that's a moral issue that is ambiguous, because some of these people are addicted to drugs. Some of these people get other people addicted to drugs. It's really something that I would say is a more pressing issue for the United Methodist Church than is this whole border thing. Okay? Now, moving on from that, I'd like to talk about Europe, and I'd also like to say, this whole immigration crisis has become a worldwide problem. And those people who ignore it, and like the person that blocked me, say, our country, this person happened to be from a country north of my country, to give you a hint. So this person said, our values as Canadians, there, I gave it away. This person said, our values as Canadians, I very highly doubt that we would allow something like this to happen and that our policy would drift to be like yours. Yeah, you wait, buddy, because they said that in Germany. And look what's happening in Germany. So we're going to get to Colombia. We're going to get to Italy. But it says here, this is the Huffington Post. And they have a nice GIF over here. It says, inside the Trump-backed campaign to push Angela Merkel out of power. The president, his allies, and U.S. government officials are offering public and private support to anti-immigrant politicians hoping to topple Merkel by July 1st. And what's their big finding? That the gay American ambassador, okay, that's that guy. Whoops. I think that, no, that's a different guy. So the gay American ambassador, I think that's either this guy or that guy. The guy in the, sorry, I forget that this is a stylus and not a cursor. This guy is the American ambassador. That's the guy he's married to. And then these two, I think, are married. So look, he met with the American ambassador to Germany is a gay guy. And the health minister of Germany is also gay. So they had dinner together. And these people are freaking out about it. This is what's so funny about it. Proof of their work trickles out in bits and pieces. A month before the president's Monday tweet suggesting Germans are fed up with Merkel's already tenuous coalition, his ambassador in Berlin, Republican operative Richard Grenell, had dinner with a hardline and rebellious member of Merkel's party, Health Minister Jens Spahn. Spahn wants Merkel's job, and after his husband posted the image on Twitter, it drew attention and as much astonishment as derision in pro-Merkel Facebook groups. King's College London lecturer Alexander Clarkson told Huffington Post. German distrust of Grenell grew just weeks later when he told Breitbart he wanted to empower hard-right activists around Europe who were dissatisfied with their country's political leaders. Many in Germany and across Europe understandably perceived his comments as interfering in domestic politics. 9 U.S. senators argued in a June 12th letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, I want to make sure people understand this. These are the same people that under President Obama, they were fine with him spying on the actual German government, spying on Angela Merkel, as was revealed by Edward Snowden in 2012, 2015, I don't remember. So in reality, this is just empty rhetoric. It doesn't have any weight to it. And then they complained that he met with Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz for lunch on June 13th. And he described the leader to Breitbart as a rock star. The U.S. Embassy ultimately said the meal was canceled for scheduling reasons, but Grenell's endorsement was common knowledge once Kurz was in town. The Austrian used his time in Berlin to hold a joint press conference with German Interior Minister Horst Seehofer, where he called for European leaders to unite against immigrants. Hours later, Seehofer told Merkel he would not budge on plans to enforce a hard border around Germany, violating a fundamental principle of the European Union by turning away asylum seekers registered in other European countries. No, the fact of the matter is that previously it had been considered crucial for a lot of these Germans. It's become frustrating because these asylum seekers reach another safe country, and then they come to Germany because the benefits are more generous than they are in Spain or in Italy. So those people aren't really seeking asylum; they're seeking benefits that are better than the previous country. Okay. So Seehofer's party, the Conservative Christian Social Union, has spent decades aligned with Merkel's center-right Christian Democratic Union. His move threatened to tear the two apart or leave Merkel looking like a lame duck for the sake of boosting the CSU's support among anti-immigrant voters ahead of October regional elections. It took days of negotiations and Merkel supporters rallying for Seehofer to agree to hold off and let Merkel try to address concerns about Germany taking more than its fair share of refugees. The Chancellor says she acknowledges the problem, but wants an EU response, not an individual German one. She now needs to use a June 28th through 29th summit to convince 27 fellow European leaders to adopt a new joint policy on legally admitted asylum seekers who are registered in one country, usually those in the south and east like Italy, and attempting to move to others. So that's not going to happen. You're not going to get Italy to agree, and you're also not going to get Hungary and some of these other Balkan countries to agree. But Merkel is working amid an international barrage of criticism and wildly exaggerated claims about the way her leadership has allowed refugees and migrants to threaten Europeans. Much of that comes out of the U.S. That's a lie. The fact is that in the U.S., people have been noticing for years that there is an issue in Europe with rising refugee populations, especially when they were denying for years the whole idea of no-go zones. Okay, and I've read Raheem Kassam's book, No-Go Zones. I have it somewhere up there, I think on the top shelf. And people would like to say, well, there's no proof of these no-go zones. It's exaggerated or whatever. Look, I would challenge anybody to plan a vacation where they go to any of these cities, whether it's in Malmo or in, what's that other city? The neighborhood of Molenbeek in Belgium. And you try to do the things that you would do in your hometown in terms of drinking or in terms of, you're not going to get to do it because radical Islam has taken over. These migrants have virtually, run amok in these countries, and the police don't do anything. It's well known. In March, Bannon, the former executive chairman of Breitbart, met with the race-baiting Alternative for Germany party, which won over 10% of the vote for the first time last year, and wants to rally the public against immigration, often by peddling lies. So let's see what they call a lie. And they just linked to one of their own articles about, this is from 2017 or whatever, before the election. I can't read this anyway. And then we have to go through all these fucking rules because in Germany, apparently there's this whole need for every single article that you need to basically sign a consent form to take a cavity search, basically in order to read an article in Germany. That's the free country that Angela Merkel has given them. I'll do it again here. You go here and, well, this isn't it. So in any case, I think that this is for sure one of the signs that they know that this whole pro-open borders cabal is falling apart, because otherwise they wouldn't be publishing this panicked article about it when they know that she's on her way out. The fact of the matter is, I've covered this before. Angela Merkel is responsible for the welfare of the German people. She's not responsible for the welfare of the Moroccan or the Turkish people. Okay, and when she betrays the trust of her own people in order to satisfy some sort of twisted set of values that places her own citizens last, then you can't call that far-right extremism when people object to it. And by the way, you're going to see pretty soon, you're going to see whether if she survives in power, you're going to see other federal elections. I mean, let's look at it. You're going to see other federal or provincial elections, state elections in Germany, where they're going to start losing more seats. It's already happened before, and you're basically going to get right-wing governments in the states, and it's going to be a huge problem for Merkel dealing with her own state parties. And right now, you can see that this is currently they command an overwhelming majority of the state. Okay, they reached in 2013. They had 47.7%. and now they're at 41%, and they're going to continue drifting downward unless they can continue to, you know, put the screws to Merkel. This is their strategy for winning that election, and that's only in Bavaria. In the rest of Germany, however, you're going to have a different issue because the rest of Germany, the government party is called the Union. It's actually an alliance between the CDU and the CSU. I've explained that on previous live streams. In other parts of Germany, the CDU is in power, and that's the government of Merkel. That's the party of Angela Merkel. And you're going to see, basically the AfD taking a lot more seats from the other members. See, in this one, this is in Hesse. Their last election was in 2013. Okay, so you have the CDU and the CSU. Well, the CDU has 38%. The SPD has 30%, but they've basically lost a lot of power since then. In the last national election, the SPD lost a ton of support. And then you have some other parties, the Greens and the Left and the Free Democrats, who are basically, they're a centrist, capitalist party. So you're going to see in this election at least 11 seats at the moment, or 11% at the moment, is going to vote for the Alternative for Germany, the right-leaning party. So, you can go through all of these other elections that have happened. In North Rhine, you had this Alternative for Germany party. They gained 16 seats in their first election there. So this is not going to be an election where the governing party is going to continue to hold power very easily, meaning Angela Merkel's Union Party. Okay, so that's in October. That's also in Hesse. So Merkel should pretty much be worried about it. And to be honest with you, with that time, with the time till that election gradually closing, you're going to see people in her own party start to actually tell her, it's time for you to retire and it's time for us to change gears because you've been in power for over 12 years now. And you're basically forcing policies down our throats that we don't accept anymore. So that's it about, the Huffington Post and their idiotic piece. And, it goes into here. It says the CSU wants a coalition destroyed if the migrant dispute can't be settled. So understand this. And I was following this throughout the day. I don't know if it's gone down yet. But they're threatening to fire the CSU minister, the interior minister, Horst Seehofer, in order for Merkel to keep control over the government. But if that happens and they lose the CSU, then they have to basically cobble together a new coalition with far left parties, parties that or the Free Democrats who don't have a lot of popular support and who might actually decide, we're not going to join this coalition. So and also it could lead to a general rebellion within her own party because they're not going to want to stay in power just for the sake of saving Merkel and then lose their seats in these regional elections in the next year or so. It's going to lead to a major upheaval within her own party, and she's gradually just destroying her entire political career in the name of promoting immigration. That's Angela Merkel. That's the way that she behaves towards her own, not just her own people, but the people that have kept her in power for years. She's basically stabbing them in the back and claiming, this is the policy that I'm going to stick with and I'm not going to change it. And people then tell me, well, this person from, who I'm still not going to mention his name, who blocked me. Oh, you don't know because you don't know the nuances or whatever, and you're too much of a hothead, and or that my arguments are too adversarial. Look, I put forward a whole argument where I showed that basically everything that they were talking about, the child separation and all of that's the way that you deal with people who are criminals in any case. You've all probably heard of it. And they were just labeling me all sorts of things. Eventually, they started labeling me a narcissist. Okay, and that's the sign that somebody doesn't have an argument, that they start labeling you a narcissist, even though they haven't posed an alternative, they haven't posed a solution, they haven't posed an alternative vision. They want to just call you a narcissist because you're reading the situation as it is, and they're buying into the hysteria that that the media is basically propagating. So then you have Italy is threatening not to go to a major conference regarding this immigration this weekend. And they're saying, we might just not show up. And eventually I think they did end up going. But, Matteo Salvini is the person who is most identified now with the anti-immigrant European leadership. Okay, so let me see the latest ones.
Ritiene che sia fondamentale per la città avere una grande moschea. Io penso che a Campi come a Firenze l'emergenza sia il lavoro e ancora il lavoro. Non siano le moschee, il lavoro, e senza bacchette magiche ci impegniamo a smontare quello che di sbagliato è stato approvato in Europa e poi ingoiato in Italia. Penso alla direttiva Bolkestein che mette a rischio migliaia di posti di lavoro sia per i commercianti che per il turismo balneare. Anche qua mi domando dove erano ministri, viceministri, sottosegretari che erano pagati dagli italiani per difendere i diritti dei cittadini italiani. Non si è capito.
He's saying, it doesn't really matter for most people, but this is a minister who defends the rights and dignities of the Italian people, and you can see this is a massive crowd over in Italy. On what is it like I think tons of people in Italy are unemployed anyway, but this was like yesterday, and yesterday was Thursday. During the daytime, people were just gathering and listening to this dude talk.
Lavoro vuol dire smontare pezzo per pezzo la legge Fornero che ha già fatto abbastanza danni, restituendo il diritto alla vita, alla pensione. Vuol dire semplificare. E in questi giorni stanno... Ragazzi, so leggere. Grazie. E anche far di conto.
So yeah, this is what Merkel is contending with. This is a guy who is popular, and he basically swept the elections in much of Italy this March, and she's dealing with I want this policy, I want it pushed through, and this is the right thing to do for Europe. But Italy obviously doesn't think so, and I predicted, this is the person who was talking to me, who has blocked me since then, said that, well, I know so much more about our policies over in his country, Canada. And I know so much about, I don't believe that we would ever do something like that. And it's wrong for you to predict, because I predicted that Trudeau would lose in 2019. He says, I've gotten so many predictions wrong, especially concerning Trump, that I don't bother to predict anymore. And that's the whole problem. That the reason that his predictions are wrong is because he's going by things like the values and vagaries of his country, which is those are the terms he used. And he was saying, well, that's why I don't do predictions. The values and vagaries are not an indicator. What's an indicator are the statements and beliefs of the common voter. And those people are largely voting against illegal immigration. They're voting against illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, I was very shocked when I found out it was the big issue of 2016. And I was late to the game. I don't think I started to really realize it until probably July, August, that was really the reason that Donald Trump was probably going to win, because fewer people than ever believed that an open immigration policy or the H-1B visa policy, which, for a lot of white collar workers was really a problem. People were tired of having to deal with this, and they were looking to somebody who would agree to fight and take somebody who would be able to absorb the punches needed in order to change those policies. And guess who that person was? That person wasn't Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson was for open borders. That person wasn't Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is for somebody who's for protectionist trade, for somebody who's for workers' rights, somebody who's for unions. He still can't understand that when you have open borders and you have a massive welfare state, it's a prescription for disaster. It's over. You cannot have both of them. If you want to have a protectionist government, a protectionist trade policy, protectionist, issues with your international trade deals, you cannot afford to take in massive amounts of illegal immigrants that deplete the, they basically dilute your worker pool. You can't do it. So there wasn't Bernie Sanders, it wasn't Hillary Clinton, it wasn't Gary Johnson, it wasn't any of those clowns. There was one. It wasn't even anybody in the Republican election. The only other person, the Republican primary, the only other person I remember in my experience who was trying to deal with illegal immigration was J-Man Truth Seeker. I'll read that in a second. That's a strange comment that I don't understand what you're talking about. Are you trying to troll? In any case, the last candidate before Trump who actually was very, very anti-immigration was probably Tom Tancredo and Duncan Hunter. And that was a long time ago. And they ran for president not thinking they were going to win. And they didn't, because obviously Tom Tancredo, there's never been a President Tom Tancredo from Colorado. And that was before I was in any way a conservative. I remember him. J-Man Truth Seeker says women deny the protection of loving, caring men while trying to be strong and independent, and as a result, they've turned to the government and legal system for protection. Okay, I understand what you mean. They demonize masculinity by redefining dominance, strength, power, and leadership as predatory qualities. It's a very astute observation. Yeah, I see this link. Yeah, that link doesn't really, it's not going to work, man. Just send it to my email. That's chefleopard.yt@gmail.com. So that's it for Italy and for Germany. And I'm gonna comment also on Colombia. Ivan Duque, it says here the conservative candidate Ivan Duque has been elected president of Colombia with 54.28% of the votes. This was also an election decided by immigration. In front of, ahead of 41.54% of votes obtained by the progressive candidate Gustavo Petro, according to, the results of 93.26% of the precincts. And then they talked about how, there was a 50.81% abstention. In reality, this election is the highest voting election since basically 1998 in Colombia. So yes, it's a low turnout by our standards. By their standards, it's the highest turnout in 20 years. Okay, and the reason is that this person, Gustavo Petro, is a former militant of the M19 gang. He's a former militant of the the M19 guerrilla group. And those people, they were kidnapping people in the 80s. They were part of the whole drug war. And people are tired of it, and they want out. They want out of this whole mess. And the other thing is that these M19 people, they are, they're trying to distance themselves from Venezuela, and they're trying to say, well, we're not as bad as Venezuela. Meanwhile, the Venezuelans who have fled over the border, they think that they see the same familiar signs that they see over in Venezuela. And I want people to understand that these were the numbers, at least according to the World Bank. I think that they're vastly underestimating the, basically the number of refugees in Venezuela up until 2016. But they're estimating only 7,513 refugees in 2016, whereas in Colombia there were 311,000 refugees as early as recently as 2016. Nicaragua 1,409. I would probably wager that there's a few more. I wouldn't say Nicaragua has a ton more refugees, but they probably have a few more than that. In reality, there's a much larger refugee population from Venezuela that's fled into other countries. It estimates 2 million Venezuelans are living outside of the country. Okay, what's the total population of Venezuela? So let's go here. I know, Wikipedia, laugh at me. You send me something more reliable for right now. Their population is 31 million. Okay, as of 2016. Right? So 2 million refugees, if you want to call them refugees. You can choose not to call them refugees, but there's over 500,000 of them living as refugees in Colombia. And in Brazil, that would probably be, let's say 300,000. So this was in March, and it's just been flowing and flowing and flowing. There's just been more and more people flowing out of Venezuela into Brazil and into Colombia, and what people don't understand is Abby Martin and the people at Telesur, they can talk all they want about the economic war, but the fact is that they decided to fight this economic war, and they're passing on the casualties to the other countries. They're passing on the casualties to their neighbors, Brazil and Colombia. And it's not going to end well for those people. A lot of those people are going to end up being exploited in those new countries, basically living a shitty life. Do you think Brazil is going to give automatic citizenship to the refugees from Venezuela? No, they're not going to, because Brazil is also going through a massive economic crisis. So essentially, this is a Leftugee crisis. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I titled it the Leftugee crisis, because you have these left-wing governments. You can call Angela Merkel's government kind of right-wing. I think if you're talking about Germany, you call her a right-wing person. They've had universal health care for decades. For decades, the left-wing party there, the Social Democratic Party, has virtually the same policies as she does. They want, it's a question of not do you need to give refugees welfare, but shouldn't you give them more? Aren't we rich enough to give them more? That's their philosophy. That's a philosophy of the left. And that's the philosophy that she's barely in any case. The needle is slightly to the right over there in terms of fiscal policy, because she wants slightly lower taxes for corporations. It doesn't matter that she supports the European Union that destroys small businesses and destroys farmers. Okay, so you're talking about a corporate capitalist like her, supported by corporate socialists like Martin Schulz and the SPD over in her country. It's the same idea in Latin America. You have these supposedly left-wing leaders that want to work for the welfare of their country and say, oh, we need to share more and we need to end this exploitation or whatever. What do they end up doing? They fuck their country over totally. The country is basically, all of the wealth has evaporated in Venezuela. I saw so many articles lately calling these people the new millionaires sarcastically, because their money is literally worthless. And all for their bullshit economic war. They've been fighting this economic war for 20 years, and all they do is they end up sending their people to jail. Some of them are their own people who they put into power and then they fail. So they have to, in order to compensate for that, they think the answer is to put these people into jail as scapegoats. No, you need to leave power, and you need to basically turn it over to somebody else. All they want to do is they want to preserve the revolution. How many decades has the revolution been in power in Cuba? And it's a miserable country. There's no infrastructure. People are driving around cars that are basically, they should have been taken off the roads in the 70s, a lot of them, and people are still driving them around. You also have this issue where they claim everything is because of the embargo. When you can trade with China, the embargo does not matter. The reason that it's failing is because Cuba, as an economy, has nothing to help the rest of the world with, except for they do have a burgeoning medical industry. So they want to focus on one small window of positive development that really only affects a certain portion of the population, because in many parts of Cuba, the healthcare is not nearly as good as people think it is here in the United States. A lot of their healthcare statistics are vastly manipulated. And maybe one day we'll talk about that. But then they want to blame everything on the economic war. Look, you declared the economic war, and you're losing it, and your people are losing it, and they're flowing over the borders into Colombia and into Brazil, and also floating on boats here to Miami. And then you want to claim that we're the inhumane people. Okay, so that's about it for today. I recognize that a lot of people were probably busy today anyway, but I did want to talk about Colombia before the week ended. And I guess, I'll see you guys next time. Probably going to do a stream on Sunday. I'm not thinking Saturday night. And, stay tuned. There's probably going to be a few changes. I'm also probably going to start posting that email address in the description, so you guys can just send me links and stuff directly for the channel. And that's about it. Please like, subscribe, comment below, and share the videos.